Alright, so we're going to continue working on our spaceship. I'm going up to File. I'm going to Set Project. I'm going to pick Moon 2, Set, and then go to File Open, and then grab my latest one, which is Alien 03. There we go. Okay, so everything's cool in here. That's what we left off with last time. So now we're going to make just another spaceship in here, so I'm just going to hide my stuff. And you'll see that this guy didn't put on the layer yet. So he's going to be kind of a high-res thing, so I'm going to drop him onto high-res. And I just marquee everything, drop them onto high-res. Okay. And then we have another nucleus here. That'll go on their junk layer. Okay. So now for our next spaceship, we're going to use the CB Curve tool. We're going to use the front view. And we're going to start on the black line here. So let me, if I change my colors, you can see that black line a little better. I'm going to hold down X and click right on one of these grid intersections. Okay, there's my first point. Then I'm going to hold Shift. And then I'm letting go of Shift and just kind of freestyling the look of this. Okay, so there's my shape so far. It kind of comes down like this, and then it goes up. And then when I get closer to this, I want to end at a grid intersection. Okay, so I either need to end here or I need to end up there. And a little trick I can do too is if I kind of move this here and then I hold Shift X. Okay, I want to end on this grid, and so I don't need to be right on one of these. As long as I hold Shift X, it goes straight across. Okay, so if I go to Control Vertex, these 2 points here are in line. And these 2 points here are in line, it's right there. Also, this point is right on the grid, and this point is right on the grid. Okay, so if they're not, we can move them. Alright, so now we're going to go to Surfaces, and we're going to say Revolve. Okay, now again, in my case, it came out the wrong direction. So if I go to my options, I change my axis from 0 in X to 1 in Y, and there we go. Okay, so there's my second spaceship. And then the next thing I want to do is just start adding some dimension to this to give it some more of a rockety look. I'm going to fix this bottom part. I'm not really happy with that. Let me go back to the front view. Grab the curve. Now, you can grab it from the outliner. So if you go here, grab curve 2, because that's the curve 2. Hit F8. And then we can grab these and just scoot it up. There we go. Maybe I'll grab this point and push it down. Just to give me a little bit more of an edge here. Okay, something like that. And I can thin it out just by grabbing these points and scooting them over. There we go. Okay. So there's our rocket. I can always make it taller. Grab the curve again. Grab the points. And pull that up, and now it's taller. Okay, so there's still playroom after this. Make it wider, like that. Okay, so there's our rocket. Go through and make some wings for it. I'm going to use the CV curve tool again, and I'm just going to draw, you know, kind of like this classic rocket wing look. Okay, I didn't start at any specific spot, just except inside. That's what I want to do, and make sure it started inside the rocket. And then when I get down here, I'm going to make sure that this point and the next point are in alignment. So I'm going to hold Shift at this point. Okay, just click a couple points here and just start going this way now. And then go into the spaceship again. Okay, so now I just have this little wing shape. Okay. And I can hit F8 still and move points around if I decide, you know, I want this to be up a little higher, like that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go to Surfaces and say Extrude. Make sure it's on distance. Make sure it's set to 0.1. Okay, 0.1 is kind of thin. Let's maybe take this length to 0.25. maybe a little bit more. Let's go to 0.5. I'm also looking at this thing, is it going to read at such a far distance away? Okay, so now that takes care of that, but we don't really have anything covering this side, obviously. So I'm just going to grab these pieces and go to Isolate Select, which is that guy. And I'm going to go to my Create, go to EP Curve Tool, and I'm just going to hold down C and click and drag along this thing. Okay. Now I'm not seeing anything here, so I'm going to go to Show, Isolate Select, Add Selected Object. Okay. And it's still not showing anything, so I'm just going to hit Undo. Switch out of the tool, hit Undo. And I'm going to go to Show, Isolate Select, Auto Load New Objects. Okay. Then when I go back to my CV Curve tool, hold down C, click and drag. There it is. And then I'm just going to go to my front view, and I can just kind of click a couple points here, go back to perspective, hold down C, click and drag, enter. Okay, so what this gave us is just a curve that just connects the end of this with the end of that. Okay, and it doesn't matter that it goes inside like this, that's not going to be any issue. Now that I have those selected, I can go to Surfaces and say Planar, and that will fill in that area. Then I can duplicate it, move it, in this case, the Z direction, 0.5 units, or negative 0.5, because that was the length of my extrude there, and now we've kind of capped that off. So now when we unisolate, now we have this wing right here. Now I'm not going to worry about filleting it. I could if I just grab those and go to Circular Fillet. You can see that indeed it does put a fillet on here, which I can adjust. Make this a little bit more nicer. It definitely does put a fillet on there, which I could adjust. I can go to my fillet here. I can change the size of that. Okay, and then I could, of course, trim that out if I needed to. I just have to be careful, like, again, in these smaller areas, that we're not losing that shape. Okay, and the fact that we went inside here, we just have to make sure that that's covered by our rocket, which it looks like it is. Okay, so you can put a fillet on there if you would like. I guess since I already have it, might as well just make the other one. Okay, but it's really going to be so far away we're probably not even really see this thing. And negative, positive. There we go. Okay, and then in this case, because they're hidden, I have to go and trim it. Okay, and this one's going to trim fine, no problem there. But this one's going to give me some issue because it doesn't really have anything on this side to say where it wants to trim. Okay, so I'm just going to cheat it. And when we do these fillets, we get this, hard to select, okay, we get this curve on the surface that tells us where we want to trim. So you can see here that it doesn't go all the way to the edge. If I hit F8 though, and I grab this point and move it, you see how I can extend it to where it goes to the edge of the surface. I can do the same thing up top. So I'm just going to make sure I have the curve selected, and it's a little bit tricky to select, but you can just click around until you grab this single line. I hit F8, I grab it, and then I can push it in. Okay. Oops. Come on. And at this point, because it's not perfectly lined up at that point, it's not going to come out exactly where I need it to be. And you can see it's actually offsetting from the fillet here. So I either have to be really careful with this, or I have to adjust my points, or whatever, any number of things. So then I can go to trim and say trim that. Okay. And now, just so I don't have to do that whole process on this side, I can delete the history on this thing, delete that, grab this surface, duplicate it, and scoot it to negative 0.5. Okay? So now I have that thing with the fillets on there. Like I said, you don't need to because you have to do these extra steps. There I'm just going to throw these on my curves layer, and throw this onto my curves layer. There we go. Okay. So now that I have that, what we're going to see from the top view is that it's basically, here's my black line, it's actually offset from the black line. So I want to group all that junk, Control G. I'm going to center pivot it, center pivot, and I'm going to hold down X and drag it in the blue direction. That way it'll snap it to the grid and line it up perfectly with the center of this. Okay, so there it is, perfectly lined up. I'm going to hold down D, hold down X, because I want to move the pivot. D is for pivot, X is for grid snapping. So I'm just going to move the pivot to the center point of our rocket. Then I can duplicate it, go to the rotate tool, and rotate it. Now this is how many wings do I want here. I could rotate this 60 degrees and hit Shift D several times, and it'll give me this many things. Okay, that looks kind of funky. I like to stick with 3. I think 3 is a good number. So I'm going to duplicate. I undid everything. See where it says undo, duplicate all the way back at the beginning. I'm going to duplicate it again, and I'm going to rotate it 120 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to Shift D right there. So the way I got 120 was if you take 360 and you divide it by 3, you get 120. So that way I know I want 3, I get 120. There it is. Okay. So there's those things that are on this. We could model little hatches into this thing as well. We're not really going to see them. Let's just display. We'll be so far away, but we can just drop some stuff in here just to add some more detail. So I'm just going to go to isoparm, and I'm just dragging in where I want that hatch to be. So maybe there. Okay. I'm going to go to Edit NURBS, insert isoparms. Let's say 2 between it. There we go. We'll go in this direction also, and just hit G to redo that. Go to this direction also. G to redo that. And then I can just go and grab the vertices for this. Right there. Make sure I don't grab the ones on the back side also. And I can kind of push those in. And you can see that when I push them in, it's actually deforming the whole shape of this. Okay? This is where we need to come in and add some extra lines to this. So I'm just going to pull this down and that. So I have a little bit of a line here. And then I can insert some isoparms. Okay, I'll do the same thing up top. I'll do the same thing on the sides. And by doing this method, what we're doing is we're maintaining one surface. Okay, as opposed to projecting and lofting and whatever else. This way we're maintaining just that single surface. So I'm going to go to hull in this case. We have a lot of divisions now. And I'm just going to click on the points that I want to manipulate here. Okay. And that's good. I'm actually going to go in here and grab one of these lines right here. There we go. And one of these lines right there. And I'm going to switch to control vertex mode, because now control vertex mode allows me to deselect things. So I'm going to hold control and just deselect all the points that I don't want. Don't want that, or that, or oops, back to control vertex, that. Got that one, got that one, that one. I want these. Okay, so I'm just basically grabbing a perimeter around here, and now I can push that perimeter in. And now you see that I have this nice little window area on my rocket ship. Okay, and I could have done that again with projecting it and with fillets and extrudes and whatever else, but just to show you that we can have stuff that we've ingrained into the surface. Okay, and I can use that same process to say, okay, I want to add a little bit of line work in here. Okay, so I grab one point there and I bring another one down. So I want to add a, just kind of like a split line right here. I can insert more isoparms. Let's say we put 4 in this point. I go to hull, I grab the couple middle, I scale them in, and I can scale them up as well. And so now I just have this little dividing line just to kind of separate the spaceship some more. Okay, these wings are looking kind of I don't know, fruity, weird. So I'm just going to go to my group, and I'm going to center pivot each one, and I'm going to scale each one down like so. And then I'm going to group them again together, and then scale them all in. You can see how it's basically moving them all in together. There you go. So it kind of looks like a bullet. I'll scale up like that. Okay. Now we are losing a little bit of detail here, but this thing's gonna be so far away we're not really gonna see that small fillet that's on there. Okay, so that looks kind of cool. All right, that's it. That's as far as I want to go with this specific rocket. Okay, just another method to kind of create this by using the revolve instead of using all those plain cylinders and extrudes and fillets and whatever else. Okay, so this is our rocket ship. Let's give it some color. So I'm going to go into grab the wing flaps, and we'll assign a Mia to it. Rocket ship 2 wings Mia. I'm going to go and grab a gamma. And I'm going to grab a color. So let's see. Let's go with this metal, but I'll add a little bit of red into the metal. Okay, hit the back button. A little bit less reflectivity. Say 0.6 for glossiness. And then under bump map, I'm going to just add a standard bump. Grid. There it is. Okay, low bump depth. I'm going to shrink the size of these. And for my repeats, let's make it 10 and 10. Okay, so if we hit 6, if we turn on our viewport, there you go, you can kind of see the grid that's on there. It actually looks like the grid's going the other way. So I want to go back to my focus, go back to my bump, and make this a negative 0.1. That way it looks like the lines are going in. And again, this is a little bit thicker here than there. So I'm going to go into my U and V width and just grab the one that's correct, which is that one, and shrink it down. Okay. I can also change the scaling of this. Oops, that's not the right one. There we go. So I have 10 panels going one way, 20 another way, just to get these square looking panels. Now, realistically, that'd probably, not be a good thing for our spaceship because, but from a distance, we'll get some detail. Just something else on the metal itself. And then this guy here, we'll go and assign another Mia. Let's use set metal again. Let's go down to our standard bump, and on here I'm going to add in a 2D texture of a fractal. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Obviously we don't want that, so we take the bump depth down. I'm also going to go to my fractal and go to my forward button here and take my repeats. Oops, not that way, the other way. This way. I want it to be a little bit more squarer looking than it was. Okay, here's what it looked like before. You can see it looks like it's kind of stretched out. I put it to 3, and now we don't look like we're as stretched out. Okay, and 10 really gives us that look of an overall kind of graininess to it. So now we hit the back button. I can change my amplitude, which will soften it. I can change my threshold. I can change my ratio. Okay, so you can see how we can play with these settings on the fly. And by playing with them, we're getting different kinds of looks. Right now, we're at a look where we have these flat areas and then some dippy areas. And then, of course, we can play with our frequency and whatever else. Okay, I want to take the amplitude down a little bit more. There we go. I want it to look like it's just kind of like a roughed up metal a little bit. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we're going to grab this guy, and we're going to group all the pieces. Control G. Rocket ship 02. Go to my outliner. I can delete. Here's my extra stuff that I made. These are the curves that I used to make it. So I can just drop those on curves, which are probably already there. And here's my path for this. Okay, I have dynamic junk. Okay, here's group 5 that has my that had my wings in it. I can delete that. Here are my fillets, which are no longer there. Delete that. Here are these curves. I thought I had a curves. I guess I didn't have a curves layer. So I'm just going to grab all 3 of these curves and make a group, and just call it curves group. Okay, so now it's rocket ship 2. Now, just like the other rocket ship, this has to be propelling itself through space with something. So we're going to create another N object. Okay, so I'm going to go to create emitter. Make sure a cloud is selected here, and go to create emitter. I'm going to make sure that my emitter's shape is set to cylinder. This one's a little easier to set because you see it's right there. I'm just going to manipulate this until we're here. Come on. There we go. So now it's going to be coming out of the thruster area. Okay, now if I hit play right now, just scoot my stuff around, rewind it, hit play. Maya's thinking. Okay, so Maya crashed. So I'm back here. I have my actually my other rocket ship. It's the same process. So now if I were to hit play, rewind this and hit play, you see the particles are going out on the side. Okay, you can see it from this view here. And actually, because of the nucleus, they're actually blowing that way. Okay. Now if we go to our emitter here, in mine it assigned it to the flag nucleus. Okay, and our other one it didn't do that. So we just have to be aware of which ones it's doing these things to, because obviously we're going to get different results based on which nucleus is controlling that. I don't want to come in here and start playing with these settings because these are already set for the flag to work correctly. But what I can do is grab the particles, go to NSolver, assign solver, and just put it back on thruster. Okay, because that's the other one that we had set up. So now if I rewind it and hit play, I'm going to grab my thrusters here and throw those back down to high res. There we go. I hit play. You can see that they're just coming out of the bottom here. Okay, and that's what we want to happen. Now this is something where if this rocket is actually going to be taking off, we could keyframe, we could set some keys on this emitter to have it kind of, you know, shake a little bit and then take off. So we can do stuff like that as well. All right. Let's first get the look of this correct before we move on any further. So I'm going to go to the emitter. Rewind this first. Go to the emitters tab. Okay. And then in the attribute editor for the emitter, I'm going to tell it that I don't want to go away from axis. I want it to go along axis. Okay, and by just changing it to a long axis, just like before, let me turn this back to default, which is on. There it is. We can see that we get this arrow pointing in the direction that they're going to shoot. So if I rewind this, I'm just trying to shrink it so I can see it, and hit play, now it's going to shoot upward. Okay, well I want it to shoot down, so I'm just going to rewind it and rotate it 180 degrees, and then hit play, and now it'll shoot out the bottom. Okay, now I can control the flaring of this by adjusting some of this random direction. Okay, so now it's kind of coming out there. I can control the particles interacting with this thing by just I can't, never mind. I can't do it because it's the NURBS, and N particles want dynamic things, so I don't want to get too crazy into that. We don't even have to worry about it because it's going to be flying anyway. Okay. So we have these things kind of coming out, so let's grab them now and change how they're coming out. So we're going to go to the particles, and that controls what the particles look like. The emitter controls how they're born into the world. The particles control what they look like. So let's call this rocket ship particles. Rocket ship _02 particles. And we're going to go to the same things we've done before. Lifespan, we'll do a random range. And again, this is based in seconds. So right now it's set to 1 second. So I think our other one we set it to 3. And our randomness we'll set to 1.5. Okay, so you can see how we get this little random burst here. Our radius, we'll play with this. We have to set this to normalized age. We have to change our, oops, not that. We have to change our radius scale randomizing. And then I'm also going to take the scale here and just drag this down at the end. Okay, and again, that's just to kind of shrink it so these things kind of dissipate into thin air. So we'll come down to, let's see, collisions should be fine, dynamic properties should be fine, mass and scale should be fine, forces, rotation, wind field, everything should be fine. Here, let's go to shading. Okay. Now, just for future reference, I can change these into something like a blobby surface, and you'll see that we actually get like solid objects here. If I change it to tubes, we get these kinds of things there. Okay, and they all have a purpose, but cloud's what we're at now. Okay. And let's see. Opacity, let's take this end opacity down, change this to normalized age. We can add a little bit of randomization in there. Let's go to color, and remember this is our first being born color. And just like the other one, I want to give it more of a yellowy tone. Click in the middle, add more of a red. And then this one will be more of a black-gray. Okay. Now, I'm not really seeing a whole lot here, but once this thing starts taking off, we'll see a lot more of these. And this should be, again, set to normalized age. Okay, so you can see what it's looking like now. And we can randomize the color a little bit just so we don't have a line there like that. That's good. Incandescence. Actually, I'm going to leave it flat on this one. And then everything else should be fine. Okay. All right. So now that we have that, I need to take this thing and I put another curve here and have it emitted on it, or have it fly across the screen on a curve. If I go to the outliner, I need to make sure that my emitter is inside that rocket ship group. Okay, so I'm just going to middle drag my emitter into that group. And that's my path from my previous one. I'm just going to... Okay. Now this end particle one, remember I can just middle drag that into dynamic junk. I don't actually move the dynamic junk group. This is simply for organization. That's all it is. And again, we rewind and hit play just to make sure everything's still working. It is good. Okay. So now let me go to my front view. And I'm going to turn on my high res. Okay. Now this thing moves in this direction. This one moves in this direction, like clockwise. So I'm going to make another curve. And this one's going to move... Oops, in that direction. I'm going to have to adjust those points. There we go. Let's grab the points. And this one, because it's a rocket, I'm imagining that it doesn't have as much movement as this guy would, which is more of like a space vehicle. Okay, so this is going to be a very simple type thing. And actually, let's start it here. I'm going to start this one on off the camera, and then it'll kind of come into the camera and zip around. I don't want to like boomerang, I just want it to be like that. Okay. Alright, so now I can go to the outliner. I'm going to grab my NURB Ship 2, control click the curve, and go to Animate Motion Paths, attach to Motion Path option box. Set it to start and the end, 1 to 120. That's our frame range. X should be my front and up is my Y. Now this one's going to be a little bit tricky because if you look at my spaceship here, wherever we're at, right there, my up is actually my front. So it's actually going to be both of these. Okay, even though it's not going to let me set it here, my front is going to be Y, and my up I can just pick as to either X or Z. All right, and then we hit attach. So now where are we at? Right there. You'll see that in this case he's ended up kind of off course. Okay, he's not on that line right there. I rewind it, I hit play, he follows it, but he's not on it. All right. So the reason it's doing that is because my pivot for that group is way over here. It's not here, it's here. So what I can do is hit center pivot, and now, because his pivot is there, then it's going to follow that. So now we hit play, and we get our stream, and you can see, yes, we do have this mix of yellow to red to black particles, but obviously it's kind of thin. Okay. So I'm going to go to my outliner. I'm going to go to my emitter, there it is, and I'm just going to take my rate up to, like the other one, I think we did like 6,000. There we go. Okay. And now this thing is like burning through the sky. And because this is more of like a rocket, and this guy here is more of like a spaceship, I think he would have more of, you know, this kind of trail type effect. Okay. Now I also want to maybe make this guy a little bit bigger. Okay, and I can always go into this and grab that ship and scale it up more. Okay, and then rewind it, and everything's going to still work. Because of how we've animated this, we can still adjust that parameter. Okay, I don't think I'm going to put any bank on this one just because of the kind of vessel that it is. I don't think I want to have that. Now I am going to grab the particles, and I think I want them to be just a tad bit bigger. So I'm going to go to their radius scale, or the radius right here. Maybe put this to 0.4, not 4, 0.4. There we go. And now we can kind of see that a little bit better. Now it's important this doesn't start on screen. I want to make sure this starts off screen so we don't see that happening. Okay, and also he's kind of slowing down right here at the end. We don't want that also, so we grab the curve, hit Control A, go to the motion path, right click, top one, and grab all these and set these to linear, just like we did in the other one. Gorgeous. Okay. So now that we have this stuff basically set up, now we have to go through and set up a camera. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my low res. I'll turn on my lights. Okay, and I can see that just because I really wasn't paying much attention to where my stuff is, if my camera is here and I hit play, I don't even see this ship until right about there. I don't even see that ship at all, really, because it's like too far up. There it is. Okay. So I want to make sure that I just have these things kind of laid out in a fashion that's going to make some sense. Okay, and your camera is where that all happens. So I'm going to make sure that my resolution gate is on, which is this guy, the blue circle. I'm going to go to View, Camera Tools, or Camera Settings, sorry, and then go to Vertical. That way it fits. If yours already fit, you don't need to do that, but I do. So I'm going to rewind this to 1. I'm going to kind of get closer to my alien guy here. Okay, he's my focus. The other stuff is just kind of background stuff. And my flag is there, good. Okay, so I'm at frame 1. I can reset this timeline to 120. I'm at frame 1. I'm going to click on Select Camera. I'm going to go to my focal length. Let's set this to maybe 20. No, maybe not. Let's go the other way. Let's say 80. Nope, I think 21 is probably better. Okay, I'm just trying to play with them just to kind of get an idea of where I want this to look. Alright, so there's my alien. So I'm just going to do a little side-to-side action on them. So I'm on frame 1. I have my camera selected. There it is. I can make a new camera if I don't want to do it perspective. I'm just going to do it perspective. So I'm going to hit S to set a key. I'm going to go up to 120. I'm going to rotate it around slightly, maybe zoom in a little bit, and then set another key. Okay, so I rewind, hit play. We get our flag, we get our alien, we get our spaceships. Okay, so now I have the ability to go through and maybe just kind of move some things around. So if I grab the curve and I rotate it, maybe scale it up a little bit, position in the background, there goes that rocket ship way in the distance, just kind of flying across. And here comes this other one right there. Okay, then I can adjust that one as well. Now I can't see the pivot for that one, but I know that I need to move it in the X because that's the X direction. So I can just click on the word X over here, translate X, and do that. I can click on the rotate Y and do that. I click on the translate Y and do that. Okay, so now let's see where we're at. Right by our screen. That looks pretty neat. Okay, now I just gotta make sure it doesn't hit this flag. So if I, just to see if it's gonna hit the flag, I rewind here, and let's say I hit rewind on this, it's gonna jump my camera back. This is why you want to create another camera sometimes. And if I spin around now, I can definitely see that it is hitting the flag, and it's nearly hitting my dude. So I can hit F8, I can grab the points, I can move the points. It's really neat how it's coming right, right next to the camera. And I'm having a hard time grabbing some of my other points. There it is. Pull that up a little bit. Okay. Alright, now it kind of misses it too much, so let's go back down. Just grab the whole curve and just kind of scoot the whole curve over. Like that. Okay, maybe we'll even have it just kind of go right in front of the camera. And grab the points on it. Okay, now it's rewind, hit play again. It looks kind of neat, but I really want to have it go like right in the front of the camera. So I'm going to make a new camera just so I can do like a split view. So I'm going to go to panels perspective new. I made a new one. There it is. I'm going to go to layouts and do 2 panes side by side. And then this one is perspective 1 that I can move around and do whatever. And this one is going to be perspective. Okay, so I'm just going to, it's called scrubbing, just clicking and dragging in here. And then I can grab the path and just kind of pull the path down. Okay, I want to make sure it's not hitting the surface of this. It isn't. No, it is. Okay, it didn't look like it. There we go. Now we'll hit play and see where it's going to come into view. Right in front of the camera. So that's a nice little effect. Okay, you can play with it and get, how you want yours to look. I think it looks kind of neat coming in like that. Okay, and I want to make sure I can see my satellite dishes as well. And remember, I can grab that satellite dish group and I can adjust the rotation of it. I can adjust its movement. And then it'll just kind of update as to where it's going to. Okay, I don't really get a good view of this spaceship right here. So maybe I want that one to start a little bit sooner. Okay, so maybe he's like starting right at the beginning. I see a spaceship, I see a satellite, and whoa! Big missile or big rocket ship coming through. There we go. Now if I want this to start sooner, again, I can grab the whole group of this. And I can even, this is going to blow your mind probably, but this, if you remember from when we created this, we have our satellite, and then we have our satellite animation group. I could even group that, call it a satellite offset group, and then I can rotate this offset group around, and basically I'm offsetting the entire animation. Perspective. Okay. So now I see those two things. Whoa, there comes that guy. That's kind of neat. Okay. Now again, you can play with this as much as you want, just to kind of get the look that you want to get with this specific one. Ideally, I want to make sure that all the things are in view. Okay. I'm actually going to start zoomed back a little bit further. Let me grab my camera. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. And then set another key, and then hit play. There you go. Doesn't have the same effect, but I want to show a little bit more of the moon surface. Alright, so that's cool. So I'm going to save it, and then at this point, the next stage is going to be creating that background. Okay, and then finishing up our lighting, and then it's just a matter of rendering. So it's a pretty quick assignment once you kind of get through some of the new things that we're doing in here, like the particles is new, the shader on this guy is new, the displacement on this is new, the end cloth we've kind of done, but we didn't do the constraints before. Okay. Alright, cool. So just to make sure we have this stuff tidied up, just turn off of our stuff. Here's our new stuff. This should all be on the high res, so we'll assign it to the high res. Our outliner should be nice and organized. More curves, drop it into the curves area. Make sure this curve is named Nerds Ship 02. Our satellite offset group. I'm just going to middle drag perspective up here, just so it's with the other cameras. My middle drag curves down there. That's just my own preference. I like to just take all the stuff that I don't really need and set it kind of at the bottom, and also I do need and set it at the top. Okay, so let's increment our saving. My binary. There we go. So that's it. So we'll come back and do the other stuff.